Well, hi there. Welcome back to Superior Lapidary. I'm David Johnson, proprietor, and you are in my world headquarters of Superior Lapidary. So welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, I hope you enjoy it. So what I'm going to talk about today is sphere making. Right behind me, I've got the glorious sphere machine going. You can see the beautiful, beautiful little Northern Lights ball that I'm working on in there right now. I've got another one right here. This is almost identical to it, in progress. There's copper inclusions in here. This comes from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. What we're going to talk about today, though, is these sphere cups themselves. One of the big questions I get asked quite often, besides about the machine itself, is about the cups that we use to polish the stones with. There's a couple of kinds of cups. I'll go into my rack here. The first step is a hard cup, and there's different varieties of this. This is kind of a homemade deal. There's diamond embedded brazing rod brazed into this surface here. So that's a real hard cup, 50 to 60 grit. There are different grits. I use 50, 60. And this is the first step in the grinding process once you've made the ball round. This is what trues it up. It'll take a ball that's a little rough and it will make it round. After the grinding process, we go to the polishing process. And I've got up to 12 steps of polish that I do. This particular one is a 200 grit. My orange cups, and I've color coded these myself. Orange I have as 300 grit. I've actually rebuilding a couple of bigger 300 grit cups right now, and that's what I'm going to show you is the process how I go about making and adhering this down. These pads are polishing pads used by the countertop guys, is the main industry that uses them. They're flat, they don't come concave like this. They're flat pads, they come in different diameters, different grits, and yeah, then I just simply put them on there. One thing you will notice is there's a bevel in there. The first time I tried doing some sphere polishing, I didn't have much of a bevel at all, and I was having all sorts of fits trying to get it to work. There's a little video, I can show you that. Maybe I'll insert a couple seconds of that clip here. But once I decided to get the bevel in there, then I had to move forward and figure out how to do it. The first dozen or so of this size I made, I used a Dremel and a little grinding wheel, and I just worked tirelessly making a bevel. That proved futile and I had to upgrade, so I did buy a metal lathe to make the operation a little simpler. I'm not a machinist. I took a class in, I think it was junior high school for one semester, and that was, I'd hate to say 35 years ago or more, so I really didn't remember much about that. So I had to learn the process all over again. But I have figured it out, and it's led to my creating some pretty wonderful spheres over the years, and hopefully I can make hundreds more in my lifetime, maybe thousands if things go well. Welcome to the machine shop portion of Superior Lapidary. Actually, it's just a workbench is my machine shop. This is an old South Bend lathe. I forget what year it is, but it is an antique. It's half wore out. The ways on here are a little bit loose, but not too bad, but they work for what I need to do. You'll see that this cup is a lot smaller than the cup that I'm going to adhere the pad to. For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to do this. It's the exact same process, whether you have this is about a 3/4 inch cup, whether you go to a 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2.5 inch, which I do, the process is identical. One thing, it's pretty cold in here. I have my gloves on, but when I'm working with the lathe, I will not have my gloves on. Never do machine work like this wearing gloves. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about one thing when it comes to setting your lathe up. When you first set your lathe up, and I have got a 1/4 inch pipe nipple in this 4-jaw chuck, I have centered my bit right perfectly with the, I've centered the nipple with the bit. So that as I spun this around, the nipple was perfectly true. And then I spin on this little bell reducer, and that's what I'm going to make my cup out of. And as it goes around, I'm not too worried if this is offset a little bit, because when I run it on the lathe and I true it up, this will be true from this end to this end, and that's what you want. If you start futzing with your chuck all the time and trying to get every one of this end centered, you're going to have nothing but problems. What you want is the back side of this centered with your cup. So anyway, I don't know if I've explained that well enough. Let me back this up. I want this centered on that. I want this perfectly centered. That means when I put this end on, this will be centered with that, and this end, no matter how oblong and poorly made it is, because I don't care about the threads, the cup that I'm making will be centered. Because we're not going to use the threads on this side at all. That's not what the purpose of this is for. I just put it on, just hand tight. Safety glasses are a must. And again, no gloves. Take it till it touches, bring it back a little bit. Tighten the auto feed down. I'm not a lathe operator, by the way. I'm not a machinist, I'm not a lathe operator. The only thing I know how to do is this procedure. I've done it many, many times. I've got it figured out. So yeah, don't ask me any questions about lathe operation. So a little at a time, you don't take too big of bites with the setup I have. I've recently gone to carbide bits instead of trying to grind my own, and I've had some success grinding my own bits and making them nice. But I thought I'd try these little carbide bits. Again, as I go, I'm truing this up to the center line of that little pipe nipple. That will give me the best cup I can possibly make. There's a number of different methods of doing these cups. This is the way I chose to do it. One, it gave me a chance to buy a lathe and do this, which I think is kind of fun. You don't even have to actually put a bevel in there. Some people just thickly glue the pads on. But I think this way gives you a much better, more consistent use of your pads. Your pads will last much longer. You won't have early spots wear out. There won't be high spots and low spots. So I think this really helps a lot. You can use plastic cups. You don't have to use these steel cups. I started doing this, so that's just how I'm going to keep doing it. There's really no big deal. The cups aren't that expensive where I can't afford to buy them when I need them. And right now, while I'm doing this, I'm trying to finish a set of smaller ones that I've got started. I've got all the big ones made that I need. One more, just for good luck. looks pretty good. I want as big of a surface area on here as possible, and I'm not worried about it being smooth either. The rough texture actually helps with the adherence of the glue. So yeah, I don't have to get this perfectly smooth, which helps because I really can't do it with this setup on these cups. There, and typically most sphere machines take 2 or 3. Most take 3, some take 2. Yeah, there it is. There's one cup made. All right. Well, here is the bell fitting we're going to work on here. This is a little bit bigger one than what you saw before. This is a 2-inch. It's a 2-inch fitting on this end, and you can see the taper in there. That's the same angle. A lot of people have asked me what the perfect angle is for that, and I've done some reading online. It's 22 degrees, I guess. I haven't measured mine. I just put a bevel in there and I've called it good. I might go a little steeper on this. It's a little bit flat, but not too much. It seems to work pretty good for the balls that I'm working on. So there's the cup. The other piece of the fitting is a buffing pad. This is a buff, actually, so it's somewhere, I'd like to call it 10,000 grit. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's a real nice, highly polishing finish when you get to this stage. The one I'm going to put on this orange cup is this one here. This is a 300 grit. The color of the pad really doesn't mean anything. They're all printed on the back what they are. I cut this out of a pad like this. All I did is I put it in the vise. I figured out how much material I would need, and I cut it with a coping saw. You could use a band saw. I've done that. I've used a coping saw. I've done a few other methods. I've used the nippers and just kind of trimmed them out. So anyway, you just simply cut this down, cut it, and then you can cut it around. You're going to wear out blades because you're cutting through diamonds, so this chews up blades pretty fast in the coping saw. So if you've only got one blade, and you're going to make a bunch of these, you're going to retire that blade pretty quick. So have a pack of them on hand when you start. And they come flat. This one has got a little, after I cut it, I cut a wedge out too, so that as I join it together, it makes a little bevel shape all of itself. And fits on there. But I've got to glue it on there, and I want to be able to hold it there while it's being glued. I need to hold it in place. I do have some Elmer's wood glue. I don't know if it's going to work as well or not, but I'm going to try it. It's pretty harmless. So we'll start off. Put a fairly liberal amount on. I want it to stick in that pad. Again, this is going in the Velcro, so it's got to hold all that Velcro. And I'm curious whether this glue is going to work. All right, this is the part of the video where I've got to put a sudden stop to it, do a little readjust, and let you guys know what happened, and then get on to the rest of the video. When I originally made the video, I was out of my regular Gorilla Glue, so I tried some wood glue. It actually stuck on quite well and held on till I polished about 8 spheres. I did, I think, 5 different cups. 3 of them are my 300 grit cups. And then suddenly, this started happening. Boom, they started coming off. So that wood glue just got destroyed in the water that I use in the polishing process. Maybe if you kept it dry, it wouldn't happen, but anyway, you should use water. And I had 3 of them come apart, and I'm assuming the other ones will too. Yeah, see, this shouldn't pull off that easily. It just should not. So what I did, I took my little Dremel wheel. Clean that up. The gluing surface. Get it with some acetone, make it nice and clean. I am going to attempt to reuse these because these are brand new. They may stay, they may fall off, is what it is. I'll put a comment down below in the comment section. If I can figure out a way to pin it at the top, I will, to let you know in the future how this goes. But this could be weeks or months before I actually know how this worked out. Got that. That's already got some glue stuck in it. So my feeling is this is not going to work real well, but I'm not out anything for trying. Worst comes to worst, all I got to do is cut a new one, and that's going to cost me about $9, depending where you get your pads. So what I'm going to go back to is the original Gorilla Glue. This is the dark stuff. Glues almost virtually everything, it says. Almost virtually everything. So yeah, I'm endorsing the product. It's worked for me good in the past. Drill a little hole through the top. Put a fairly liberal amount of glue on. So I've got a fairly liberal amount of glue. And I always put the notch part away from the little bolt, the tightening bolt. Just seems like it works out better that way. Sure, things worked out well. So I took a piece of steel. This is about a 3-inch piece of steel, and made a little bevel about the same identical shape as that. I've got a piece of bolt here, welded a big washer on. Actually, the proprietor of Greenlight Filming welded that on for me the other day, so I needed a few more of these. So yeah, check out that channel, Greenlight Filming. It's pretty neat. Then I just simply put a nut on here. A little too much thread. I'll shorten this up, I think. There. Snug it up by hand. I don't need a wrench to do that. And now I just let it sit. If you don't want to build something like this, originally what I had done is I had just set a weight on it, a big heavy chunk of steel, and that worked out kind of well too. I had some big fat washers that were about that diameter and stuck them in there so that this would sit in the washers and it would hold it in shape. But honestly, this works best. If you have a lathe or have access to one, just go ahead and make some of these. They're super simple. All you need is some stock, some 3-inch stock or whatever size you choose to use. And that's that. So here's the kit that I've assembled to make these things. You can see all the pads I have right now. I've got enough stock to make quite a few. All my little tools. There's some of those. I've got somewhere here, I've got some smaller ones. But anyway, I've got those. When I cut the pads apart, I save all of the little pieces so I can do several sizes of cups with one pad. You can see this is 100 grit. And again, as I turn this around, you'll see a whole bunch of different colors, yellow and red and dark something or other. Don't worry about the color of the Velcro, it's the pad itself. They also come in all sorts of different shapes, and as far as the design of the pad. The smaller the little bubble there, the happier I am. And I've got them, all the grits I have. And I save all the little bits because I've got another project in mind to do with them too. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Etsy, YouTube. Just look for Superior Lapidary and you should be able to find me, or at Superior Lapidary. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe, leave a comment, I'll get back to you, and until then, keep on rocking.